Hi everyone, I'm Evander Holyfield Adhiambo, and I'm a member of GST, that's the Global State Tour, and I'm hereby to share with you some of our African culture, most probably my culture. That's the community that I normally come from. As I told you that in Kenya there are 42 communities, and each communities have their own way of living. I mean, they have their own way of lifestyle. So I'll be tackling majorly my community, and I come from a Luo community. So in my community, starting from the naming, actually before I start with my community, in African traditional society, we have rites of passage that we normally pass through. And one of them is the name, birth and naming. So when you are born, normally you have to be given a name. After naming, you go through baptism. And after baptism, you have to go through circumcision. And after circumcision, you have to go through marriage. And after marriage, probably we know that all of us will die. So you have to go through death. So when I start with birth and naming, in my community, when you're born, and let's say that you are a boy or a girl, we are normally born. We are normally being given names according to seasons, or maybe according to the how the day is. Okay, like for example, for me, I'm Odhiambo. I was born in the evening, and for a lady, if she was born in the evening, her name changes to be Adhiambo. So there's the difference between O and A. So in my community, when you're being born, after you're born and you're the firstborn in the family, actually the person who's supposed to give you the name is your grandparents. That's in the modern way of living. But nowadays we are trying to neglect the modern way of the African way of living. That's the old living. We are trying to come up with a new living. That's the modern living. For me, I didn't go through the African traditional naming. When I was born, I was named. My father is the one who suggested a name for me, and he named me Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield is an American boxer. So my dad loved boxing. So he's a retired American boxer, and by the time I was born, he was fighting against Mike Tyson. So the kind of name was against the African way of which our parents used to name their kids. So but back then, how kids were being named, they were being given names by their grandparents, not their mom or dad. So after naming, you go through baptism, of which I don't know how it is in Denmark. It's the confirmation. You have to be confirmed in the church. Like for me, I was raised in a Christian family. We are members of Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that's where I was raised. So I was taken to the church and I was confirmed in the church while I was still young. But still, you can go through baptism at an older age. Like for me, I will give an example with me. I went for baptism when I was in Form 2. And by then, I was 16 years old. That's when I went for baptism. And after baptism, you have to go through circumcision. In my community, how we normally do circumcision is totally different from other communities. In my community, our way of circumcision was the removal of the 6 lower teeth. And I saw it with my granddad. He didn't have his 6 lower teeth. So for him, he underwent the traditional way. But nowadays, since we are in a modern world, you have to we do it in a medical way for several reasons. The first reason is for medical purposes. As you see, if you go for circumcision, it helps to reduce the chances of getting HIV by 60%. So that's why people nowadays go for the modern way of circumcision. But back in my community, back then in the olden days, it involves the removal of the lower teeth. But also it depends with other communities. Like in other communities, I will give this example with the lawyer community. Their way of circumcision was totally different from our way of circumcision, whereby when the boy reaches a certain age, maybe 8 years or 10 years, they are normally being taken to a forest, whereby they stay with the elders there in the forest for 1 week. Then the forest, they are normally half naked. I mean, they totally don't have their clothes on. So this whereby their way of circumcision was that a traditional surgeon, traditional doctor, normally performs the circumcision. Not everybody can perform it, but it was only performed by the traditional doctor. This is whereby they take a red hot knife, a very hot knife, sharp red hot knife, and they cut the foreskin of the penis. And during the procedure, you're not supposed to shake, you're not supposed to shout, and or you're not supposed to scream. This showed how brave you are, and this showed how manhood you are. So that's how they normally did the circumcision. And you have to stay in the forest with the elders of the community as they sing the bravery songs. And they used to stay there for a period of 1 week. That's when you are being returned back to your community. And during those days, during that time, they normally smear mud on your body. I didn't know what that really signifies, but they do that. So after circumcision, you have to go through marriage, of which also how we normally marry is totally different from other communities. Like in my community, when I want to marry, for example, there's this thing called a bride price. This is what you pay in the exchange of the lady. Like in my community, for me to marry, I've seen a beautiful girl that I'm interested in and I want to marry her. So I have to pay a bride price to the family. And the bride price depends on the family agreement. Some family accept bride price in form of cattle, exchange of cattle, and other family takes it in exchange of money. But most probably is through exchange of cattle and money, both two. So the bride's family agree on the amount of cattle you are supposed to bring to their family for you to get that lady. So that's how we normally do it at marriage point. When it comes to wedding, we also do it in a traditional way. But before I forget something, that's how we normally did our marriage in the olden days. But in the modern way nowadays, in this modern world, when you want to marry, even though we not still pay the bride price, but it takes a long time for you to pay the bride price. Maybe you had found a lady and you have stayed with her for maybe 10 years without taking the bride price, you're still with her. But back in the olden days, you are not supposed to take that long. So that's the change that has really taken place. But still, bride price, it still exists. You have to pay the bride price. Even when the lady dies before you marry her, you have to, for you to marry her, you have to take the bride price, but it won't be that much as compared to as she was alive. So after marriage, if you're interested in doing a wedding, that's well and good. It's upon you. For the wedding, it was not a must for you to do a wedding. But I will just take you through how we normally do our wedding. Back in the olden days, I don't know how they used to do it in the olden days, but in the modern way, if you have already married, For you to do a wedding, you have to invite family members, if you are willing to, friends and relatives, and you do it majorly in church for people to witness. Or if you don't, if you don't want to do the mass wedding, you can. I don't know. I've forgotten the name of the wedding that we normally practice nowadays. This is whereby you invite a lawyer and a few of the relatives from your side and from the bride side, and they come and witness this in front of a lawyer. So that's how we normally also do our wedding in the modern days. After wedding, probably we know that you'll die, and death is something that is inevitable. You can't stop it. So I will just take you through how we normally bury our dead how we normally bury our dead. In the traditional way, we still do it in the traditional way. This is whereby when someone is dead, or when I'm dead, I'll be taken to a morgue, that's a mortuary, whereby I will be preserved there for some days, depending on how our family is stable to conduct a dignified wedding, burial. So I'll be taken to a morgue, and I'll stay there for some days as the family plans on how I should be buried. Because this is my last day, we normally bury the dead with a lot of respect and dignity. So the day that I'm taken from the morgue, I'll be taken to our homestead, and I'll spend there a night. If I had my own house, I will sleep in my house. Even though I'm in the coffin, but I'll be taken in my house, spend a night there, and the following day I'll be laid to rest in our homestead. We don't bury our dead in the cemetery or burn the dead, but it depends on your wish. So from how we conduct it from the mortuary, there is a convoy of vehicles that come and pick your body from the morgue, and they take you to your homestead. This is whereby people mourn you, they celebrate you, and the celebration is through eating a lot of, we normally slaughter cattle, a cow, a goat, and we celebrate how you lived with your family or friends. So we celebrate you, we mourn, we dance, we praise you even though you are dead. So the following day, after sleeping in your homestead, the following day they will conduct a funeral, and after conducting a funeral, they will bury you in your homestead. This kind of burial, I know it's not the same as in Denmark, or maybe with other communities, but that's how we normally do it in our community. Yes.